Discord over illegal immigration intensifies. The White House disparages GOP governors who are sending illegal immigrants to Democratic cities. NTD's Iris Tao has more on how Republicans are responding.
Republicans stepping up their protest of the Biden administration's border policies. This week, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sent dozens of illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott sent hundreds to Washington, D.C. And these actions are triggering condemnation from Democrats in the Biden administration, which are accusing Republican governors of using illegal immigrants for a political stunt.
And we have a process in place to manage migrants at the border. We're working to make sure it's safe and orderly and humane. Republican officials should not interfere with that process by waging these political stunts.
The White House on Friday further accused these governors of using, quote,
tactics we see from smugglers in places like Mexico and Guatemala.
But the Florida governor defends his actions.
We are doing it voluntarily. They sign a release and then they get a packet. What's not humane is what Biden is doing. He's given a false promise. The border is open, luring people to come here, and then basically cutting these people loose and leaving them high and dry.
Meanwhile, White House officials are reportedly discussing litigation options against these GOP governors. I asked Texas Congressman Chip Roy for his take on it.
Or you want to complain about 50 going to Martha's Vineyard when 53 human beings died in a bus in San Antonio, Texas? And the administration wants to sue a governor of a state for wanting to send a signal to the country. And that's what this is about. It's waking the country up.
And on criticism, saying that they're using immigrants as political pawns. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, well, it's the administration that have been using human beings as political pawns now for many years. And the result are dead migrants and dead Americans.
And Congressman Michael Cloud adds,
our taxpayer dollars has been sending people across the country to different communities for a while. And this administration continues to deny and lie about it.
Reporting in Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill are calling on the Pentagon to end its vaccine mandate. They're citing grave concerns over the military's readiness. In a letter to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Thursday, the lawmakers said the U.S. military currently faces a, quote, self-imposed readiness crisis. They cited data showing that 8% of the Army face expulsion over the vaccine mandate. This is while the Army already struggles with recruiting targets this fiscal year and has to cut its targets for the next fiscal year. Meanwhile, the Marine Corps quietly updated its vaccine policy earlier this week. The branch will not be punishing those seeking religious exemptions, at least for now. This is in response to a recent ruling by a federal judge in Florida. And the legal team at First Liberty Institute has been taking up cases defending some military members who choose not to take the COVID-19 vaccine. First Liberty attorney Danielle Runyon joins us to discuss. Danielle Runyon, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Danielle, First Liberty has been representing multiple cases of military members who've chosen to decline from taking the vaccine. You were also a plaintiff as you also serve in the Air Force. If you could get us up to speed.
Yes, so we have two cases. We have the Navy SEALs case and we have the Air Force case. Both cases challenge the constitutional violations that are going on with respect to the mandate and also the Religious Freedom Restoration Act violations that are occurring.
Now, the Navy seems to have reversed course on punishing unvaccinated SEALs. Is this the case, and where do you see this going?
So they haven't reversed course on punishing the SEALs. The mandate is still in effect, and service members still have to comply with that. In fact, they're also still processing denials. So where I see this going is this is going to be a court battle to the end. First Liberty is here to defend our brave men and women who have taken an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States, and we're standing by them every step of the way.
And do you think your cases are getting stronger as the science continues to evolve?
Absolutely. What we've been saying since day one, some of our members, they have had natural immunity, they've recovered from COVID, and all of our members have been able to perform their job safely since day one. Since the beginning of the pandemic, they've been able to perform their duties. And now, because they filed religious accommodation requests, many of them are being pulled from performing their core duties. Meanwhile, those with medical exemptions that have been approved are performing their core duties. We're seeing pilots with medical exemptions flying in the cockpit, and those who have religious reasons, religious objections to taking the vaccine being grounded from flying. This is ultimately going to result in career loss. Right now, these members have their jobs, but they're going to ultimately lose their careers if they can't perform their duties.
The country of Denmark now suggests that those under 50 years of age do not need to get a booster. I guess what science do you think they're following, and do you think the United States and other countries will start to follow suit?
Well, I think the publicly available information is out there. The CDC has put out information. These vaccines aren't preventing the spread of the virus. Military officials are aware of this fact. And, the military is choosing to ignore these facts. And again, this is just a clear violation of the law. And we're here to defend the interests of our brave men and women, our national assets. We're here to defend them.
Now, the WHO has just come out and signaled that the end of the pandemic is in sight, a stance they have not yet taken. What do you think will happen with so many of these cases and policies once major governments and bodies officially acknowledge this pandemic is over?
I don't have an answer for that. We've already seen so many policies being walked back, masking on airplanes, social distancing, so many things in our own country that are happening that one would think, why are these mandates still happening? We're experiencing the largest recruiting crisis that the military has seen in recent history. And at the same time, we're looking to purge tens of thousands of military members. We need to get back to work, to operating as a military and focusing on real national security threats, not our faithful men and women who have served this country honorably.
Danielle Runyon, thank you so much for your service, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The Chinese regime is sanctioning top executives of 2 U.S. arms firms in retaliation for recently selling arms to Taiwan. The sanctions were imposed on Raytheon Technologies CEO Gregory Hayes and Boeing Defense, Space and Security CEO Theodore Colbert. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning announced the sanctions at a regular briefing earlier today. The move came after the State Department approved a potential $1.1 billion sale of military equipment to Taiwan through contracts with Boeing's defense division and Raytheon. Details about the sanctions or how they will be enforced were not provided. The sanctions on the 2 American CEOs are unlikely to have any significant effect. Chinese Communist leader Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin met yesterday for the first time since the war began in Ukraine, and the two regimes are forging even closer ties amid the war. What should the U.S. take away from this? Here to discuss, we have Professor and former Assistant Secretary of State for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, Robert Destro. Professor Robert Destro, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Professor, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin have just finished a meeting in person. What are some of your biggest concerns of a more fortified Russia-China alliance in terms of regional stability around the world?
Well, I would start to answer your question by starting close to home. There's no question that both President Putin and President Xi are interested in replacing the dollar as the world's reserve currency. And I think I don't think our politicians or the country as a whole has any idea what a world of hurt that will cause here in the United States, wholly apart from the question of regional stability.
There's often a discussion of which regime, Russia or China, poses more of a threat to the United States. What do you think?
Well, I think that's the wrong question. I mean, I think the right question is, what does this forthcoming BRICS alliance, which has Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, and most of the global South, what does that look like? And that's a bloc that is formidable in its nature, and it will change the power equation across the world in ways that don't help us.